Hello once again and welcome back to a new video, sort of not just visualizing and not just lyrical videos, but since a lot of time went by, welcome back to another sort of tutorial of I show you my project and maybe and hopefully you will get inspired and motivated and maybe learn something from it. But I shut up now and let's dive into the project. Before starting a mashup, you should always ask yourself, what do I want to do? In that case, you have said, okay, I want to do a mashup. Why you want to do it? Maybe you find 2 or 3 different songs that you like and you just want to mash them up just together because they maybe work well or just you like them. And particularly for that track or for this mashup, it was my 2020 anniversary, year best of. With all the songs, and I say literally every song that I released 2020, I have at least put a little piece into that track. So if you're now starting doing a mashup, what I would always suggest you doing is exporting the stems. As you see here, when I go into my stems folder, I've got like my mashup 2020 folder, and there you see all the different tracks that I've released last year. So I've exported not the whole track and not just every chord progression and instruments. I exported all the things that were a little bit outstanding and made the track at the end unique. So for example, as you see here in the case of Hubble, I've exported of course the guitar or the vocal chop. Very, very dry, as you see, just because I wanted to have the freedom editing it afterwards. And that is, as you see, what I did to every track. Easy mode, warriors, everything I wanted. This cover that I did, I've just exported the midis. When it's all over, of course, when I had songs that I've made together with other artists, for example James V or Lisa Bolts, of course exported the vocal. Then getting into the project, I have actually started with the one thing that I was the most proud of, which was Hubble. Hubble for me personally was a huge step in not only music production, but like all sort of when I'm like having a music project that I don't want to just upload it. I want to have an animation video, like a music video on it. I want to have like a little story behind it, and that is firstly what I did with Hubble. Before I just released music, but in that case I actually wanted to transport a message. By the way, in that we're talking about Hubble and all the EP. All the music videos and the story behind those tracks are coming in the near future. I just didn't manage to get the music videos done by myself because there's nothing changed yet, then I mostly work alone. So started with the guitar on Hubble. As you see here, the guitar was very much pitched down, 2 octaves actually, as you see here then. And very heavily processed. So at the end, this is the guitar I want to build up things. And then I said, okay, which chords I can maybe use. Very easy, and around those chords I built everything else and I edited them. At the end I've decided to do all the tracks in F-sharp major, and I pitched then every other instrument and every vocal to that key. And that is how it all started. Then the most fun part for me actually was the intro, because my goal is, like in every track, that right from the beginning you should be entertained and should be into like your own movie sort of view, in your like directly into thrown into the picture of the song. And that is how I started. I have added some strings, very basic at the beginning, as you see here. Just at the beginning, sort of like a Hans Zimmer vibe, and then I've added another notes and then built up towards the final chord progression. And here we go with the chord progression then. this library is so good. First of all, what I used here was Labs, the free library from Spitfire Audio, the strings long preset. And then I have just used an OTT, like normal compression. Then an FL-Stereo enhancer, just for the whiteness. And then here just a normal EQ, cutting some of the lows, boosting some mids and some high frequencies. Then the next thing that I've did were actually having not only the strings but also some piano playing in the background, which has then the same progression as the strings. So we've got first of all the main note playing that you've sort of set a tone, and then you more and more dive into the final chord progression. Here I used the Spitfire Audio soft piano with just a normal EQ with like a high cut, then also an imager, just pure stereo-ness, and then some OT. And that's basically it. Then just a lot of effects, ambient sound. We've got Virtual Riot from his heavy bass design. This just feels so home. It feels nostalgic and just grounded right from the beginning. And then just the effects are... And then, as you heard, we dived directly into the vocals, which was seriously at the end the hardest part, because here we have Back to You, which has been a very successful track overall in the last year, 2020, and I'm so thankful for that. We have Back to You in A minor, then we've got Never Forget You with A sharp, F, A sharp minor, then we've got Back in Time, and then of course the chain with a G minor, and all relatively in other tempos. So composing that into like one track was very difficult, but not impossible. So what I mainly did here is having one lead vocal, which for me personally was James V with Back to You, because he just outdid himself, and it's just so fitting and just it's just perfect, I think. So this is the lead vocal of him. I wish I get back to you, back to you. Oh. And as you see here, I've added a lot of effects. So without any effects, it sounded like this. I wish I get back to you. I wish I get back to you. And of course I pitched them also, but not like in the way of just pitching in here up and down. I've actually went to FL-Studio's new tone. You could also use auto-tune, or I don't know, I blend in here another pitcher correction plugin. Just use like every pitch correction plugin and then rearrange every single note like to the actual key. And here I just had to move it one semitone up, just the overall vocal, so it was not a big deal. Then I've had the vocal of Never Forget You, which is very in the background, and that is of course on purpose, because here if you don't have them vocals in the background, I now play them without any effects. I wish I get back to you. I will never forget you. No. They clash together. They sound perfect just with each other. But here I had to actually give the Back to You vocal, which is the main vocal, more room to breathe. And then I've decided to have the vocal of Never Forget You more in the background and with a lot of room. So you just hear it in the background, and therefore they don't collide with each other, but actually add a lot of atmosphere besides just the Back to You vocal. I wish I get back to you. Back to you. I wish I get back to you. And that is how I went for the rest of the song. Then I here have the vocal of Lisa Bolt with Back in Time. just very soft in the background, which has also the same effects as on the Never Forget You vocals. So a lot of room and very in the behind. And then when the Back to You vocal isn't playing, we have got Lisa Boltz once again with the chain. Those two parts were the thing where I said, okay, I had to put them in. We have the classic part here, which sounded originally like this. But I wanted to combine it with the, which is so great, and then just put them together. Yeah, and then we've got all the vocals fitting together. At the end, I've just added the When It's All Over vocal. Please, when it's all over. Yeah, just for having all the songs and all the vocals that I've ever used in a song. But When It's All Over was sort of different compared to the other songs. Not like this forwarding, but more relaxing in the background, which then I've decided putting it just at the end. And that's basically how I made the intro. Of course, I've added a lot of strings, as you see here. Not like the strings that I've showed you before, but adding yet another layer of strings and woodwinds. Just on top, so you've got even more emotional. And to set the end tone, of course, a sub bass. If you didn't hear that, then you have poor headphones. That is basically how I made the intro. That's why I would say let's move on to the build-up and drop. For the build-up and the drop, I have made something different. We have got the Aunt May from Spider-Man 2 from Sam Raimi quote here. And this quote plays at the beginning and then into the build-up. So I said, okay, I wanted to have a little bit more room to breathe. So what I just did is having this little guitar here playing in the background or coming then in. With a lot of effects on it. Then the little ding key thing. Which I have to say, those are not playing the same melody. But here, it really isn't a problem because it is in the same key. And that's why it is not a big deal here. Then we move into the build-up, which I have added then the pads or sort of the plugs things from Never Forget You. Just for even more reference, and then I've added the main guitar here. Which I have to say isn't in the key of the actual song. When I put the piano here, it isn't sounding good. It sounds okay, but isn't then at the end just fitting perfectly. So, as you have maybe guessed, this first part is slightly different than the second part. And how it did just that is just removing every chord progression from the beginning and just having then this little key thing playing here, which sort of starts in the build-up and then moves towards the end. And then just adding the hubble lead at the end. And therefore we can change the key without having problems that those different chord progressions interrupting with each other. So in a nutshell, in the first place, we have a solid chord progression, which is different from the rest. And then I've said, okay, let's just remove all the chords and all the things, for example, strings and basses and all those type of stuff, which set the chord progression, and just having then the leads and the like sort of melodies playing, so that we can introduce yet another chord progression. And that is how I continued then with the build-up. Of course, we have huge orchestration playing. So here a normal 4 on the floor kick, and then just at the end, yeah, smash it out with a lot of build-up percussion and orchestral percussion. Just to get into the drop. The last thing that I have then added was those build-up synths. Which is just Silent 1 with the cutoff playing here. You get sort of Alan Walker vibe with that one, just to introduce those things. Because you can't just swap over and just say, okay, now we just play pure electronical or pure orchestral stuff. You have something just playing in the background and then moving on and getting louder, and then just have a sort of a transition into the next part, which then leads, of course, to the drop. For the drop, I did just normal future-based things. So, of course, I have sort of all the effects playing. Yeah, as you see, a lot of things going on just to support the main chord progression. So we've got, of course, the drop drums here. Which are just layered kicks. We have a normal kick and then like a stomp kick, just for the stereo-ness. Then we've got a snare. Then we've got my main snare that I always use. Just so thick. And then at the like second half of the drop, we introduce then the hi-hats, and the sprinkling and the ride. And then add in another drum kit, which here is like a real drum kit, or like a sample of a real drum kit. Just for yet another layer of sound, and yeah, just for feeling a little bit more organic. Then let's just dive directly into the main thing of the drop, which is of course all the synths. We've got this huge layer of drop. I'm now gonna get into detail how I made the decision of the different layers of the drop. So first of all, we go into the drop pattern, which are 8 different instruments. The main instrument is of course Serum, with my favorite preset, which is just a very good solid saw, with then the chord progression. Then the second thing is just my citrus saw, which I then moved up 1 octave just for having even more thicker sound. Then of course my favorite bass, just playing from the mid to the high end. Then my normal lead, together with the more cute lead, which you could normally use just in sort of those cute, kawaii, future-based, but I've decided to get this here, and of course a sub bass. Which is at the end 3x oscillator, and then altogether it sounds like this. Of course, a lot of mixing, but not too much. So the only thing that I mainly do is just having EQ and OTT put on and just, yeah, everywhere. Then of course, some white noise. and some crowd that cheer you up. And then the last thing is that I have used the guitar from the build-up and destroyed the heck out of it. With hardcore, with fruity convolve, with parametric EQ, reverb, love filter, and even more saturation and OTT, and of course then sidechain. Hey, so I'm now talking from the post-production. The video is already done and already finished, and I just want to quickly show you this drop without any other effects, guitar or the pauses, and speed it up. Let me show you something. So what I want to say with that, if you literally have no inspiration at all, it's okay to get inspiration from another track, and let's continue with the rest of the video. The outro was very easy. I have just used the key, as I've said, that I have introduced in the build-up. Then of course, just some normal chords playing with the guitar. A lot of reverb and some vinyl cracking. And that's basically it. If you've got any more questions, you can of course write me a comment under this, and I hope this was sort of interesting. I hope you had a lot of fun. Thanks for watching, and I would say have a really nice week, stay safe, stay healthy, and see you soon. Stay tuned, and bye bye.